Welcome to Wet Pussy Wednesday. Every Wednesday on live at 7 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. You feel me? So make sure you tap in. Come listen to good adult conversation that we all need. First, I am Queen J. You can reference me as such, or you can call me Queen. I also allow my queen. With my brand, I made my brand in 2019 and I wanted to just educate people on topics, mostly sexual topics, sexual health, sexual wellness, just different things that we need to talk about that we usually aren't taught in school or by our parents. Excuse the dog in the background. Hopefully, y'all can still hear me. All right, let's get started. So, today we will be talking about red flags in relationships. And now I will be primarily referencing intimate relationships when I talk about this, but honestly, this needs to be put in reference to any type of relationship, whether it's parental or it is a sibling or any other type of family member, a friend, or may it be a sexual or romantic partner. This is important all across the board, you feel me? Unfortunately, I am the queen, feeling queen, of red flags, like finding them and ignoring them in relationships until shit gets out of control. And so I feel like I have hella tips and knowledge and intel on trying to look for red flags before they get too out of control, dramatic, extreme, toxic relationship behavior. I wanted to read the definition of toxicity because I know a lot of people, they don't like the word toxic being used because they feel like it's being overused. And I can agree. I feel like people use toxic in descriptions that don't necessarily need it. But I just want to read the definition real quick. So, the definition of toxicity is poisonous, hazardous, bad, unpleasant, or harmful. Now, I don't want any of those words associated with my life or my relationships. Nothing around me, my business, my nothing. And so, why be in an environment that is toxic? And that can happen when it comes to these unhealthy behaviors that potentially can stem into unhealthy relationships. So, that's just something important to think about. Like, I've seen it firsthand that it can really turn into some messy and traumatic shit if you ignore red flags in the beginning of the relationship. I want to start with some beginner red flags. So these red flags are like the red flags that when you kind of see them in like they're small, they make you kind of second guess yourself, but you see them in everyday interactions, really simple things, but they can potentially grow into something bigger. And so that's things like lack of accountability. So that can look like not being able to own their behavior or their emotions or their expression of their emotions. Or just in any situation, just noticing that they put the blame on other people a lot of time. Another one is controlling in any way, whether that be of social interactions, of like, who you can see, where you can go, with whom, when, where, and how, or controlling in they want you to act in the way that they want you to act, whether that's dressing or that's behavior. Like, it seems like they're trying to mold you into their desires. Like, that is a big red flag because we're not here to fill a role that somebody wants filled. We're here to be ourselves and connect with other people who are being themselves, and just, let the magic take care of the rest. You feel me? Like, just, there's no such thing as trying to change somebody or help somebody or raise anybody in a relationship. Like, if there's any of that molding, changing, gotta go. In terms of the other person and yourself, just, it's a waste of energy. You can't change anybody, so why try? Why get in a relationship with somebody to try to change into who you want them to be? Why not find somebody who better fits, who you're looking for and what you want in a relationship, and y'all can be two naturally acting adults in a happy, healthy relationship. Ooh, this is one that is written for a personal reason because one of my exes does this. Anybody who feels like they know you better than you, that's like borderline insanity. How can you know somebody who they spend every day, every waking moment with them, in subconscious, unconscious moment, a sleep moment? Like, how can you know somebody better than themselves? How can you know better for somebody else than themselves? So in terms of either making decisions, having conversations, or just in general trying to like manipulate your life, if somebody is making it seem like they know better than you, like they know you better than you, that's like a super red flag. So if you find yourself involved with somebody who is arrogant enough to think that, I don't see that ending in a positive light, unless, of course, there's some type of change. And we'll talk about, changing and growing when it comes to deciding what relationships that we pick in our lives. Asking personal boundaries. Like, if you notice that somebody doesn't have boundaries for themselves, for their self, they probably won't understand respecting somebody else's boundary. They probably won't be very empathetic towards somebody else's boundaries if they don't have boundaries for themselves. And that is a huge super red flag for anybody that you're dealing with in life. If you just notice that they don't talk about their boundaries, they don't speak up about their boundaries, or they ever say that they don't have boundaries, that's just not healthy. Because if you can't realize what your push limit is, or understand what it feels like to be in an uncomfortable situation and like speak up and change the situation, you won't be able to put yourself in somebody else's shoes and understand their boundaries and respect their boundaries. So that is another beginner red flag for any and every relationship that you get involved in. Like, some crazy shit. When, like, no boundaries. The early red flags are so important to be able to identify, because it's so important to find unhealthy and red flags early on so you can act accordingly, have the conversations that you need to have, change behavior, or possible separation. There are behaviors that I personally just think that, you should watch out for and just keep noted in the back of your mind so you can act accordingly and just have the healthiest and most satisfying relationships that you're involved in. So, we thinking big picture here. When we think about relationships, and we're thinking about the people that we invest our time in our emotions, and just everything, like, it should all just be quality. It should all be intentional, and it should all be healthy. Everybody should be healthy, safe, and happy in any type of relationship that they're in. This conversation was actually sparked because I was watching 50 Shades Darker. That's the second book in the trilogy. And it was just like so much behavior in the beginning of the book that I'm just like, red flags, like, what the fuck? This is not healthy behavior in a relationship. Like, it's like super controlling. And I mean, that's another conversation as well. But But yes, that's where this conversation sparked from, is that there's a lot of things that we romanticize in relationships that really aren't healthy behavior, and they could stem to more serious like dangerous interactions and dangerous outcomes if not handled appropriately. There are very early signs, behaviors. People tell you exactly who they are early on every day. And I mean, even more than just behavior. Like, yes, people telling themselves with their behaviors and their actions and their decisions, but people tell you right out of their mouths as well. So another early red flag is if somebody tells you that they were in a toxic or violent or unhealthy interaction. Now, I say that because I found myself in a relationship last year where early in the relationship, this person told me that he had gotten physical in a previous relationship. You know, of course, I take the time to like let him know, like, I don't find that okay. If you ever put your hands on me, the relationship is over, you know, X, Y, and Z. But honestly, I should have read that as a red flag, because past behavior can very well tell what future behavior will be. And so people tell you straight out of their mouths who they are, their habits, their behaviors, and their morals. All you got to do is listen and accept it, because we be trying to flip it and excuse it and change people. Yeah, listen to people the first time. The first time. Like, I would not have had to gone through 2 surgeries in the winter if I would have just listened the first time. Just crazy life shit. So, you know, I'm here so y'all can learn from my mistakes. My big ass mistakes. My junior year in undergrad, I was a peer educator at Michigan State University for the Department of Sexual Assault and Relationship Violence. So what I did is I hosted these workshops for incoming freshmen or like first year transfer students. And we just talked about, like, you know, signs of well, like we talked about stalking, we talked about sexual assault, date rape, alcohol and rape, you know, just all that stuff. But we used to use this analogy in the workshops of for toxic, abusive, unhealthy relationships. So if you have a frog, you know, an alive frog that is jumps, it breathes, all that stuff. If you put this frog in a big pot of room temperature, lukewarm water, it's chilling, it's swimming. You feel me? It's calm, it's enjoying itself. It's a new pot, new pot of water. It's checking the place out. You feel me? If you slowly turn the heat up on the water, you know, you turn it up to like 1 or 2. It's a little warm, but you know, he's still chilling. He could live. He could live in his pot of water. He's chilling. He's not gonna leave his pot of water. But if you keep turning it up little by little, it's not gonna notice those changes. You know, it's gonna be like, I'm not gonna leave this pot of water. I can deal with a little bit of heat. But then it's gonna get to the point where the temperature is where the water can start boiling. And at that point, it's too late for the frog. You know, the frog is already cooking at that point. But it sat in the water. It didn't really, you know, take heed to the heat, the slow increase of the heat. And now it's stuck in this boiling pot of water. Now, if you have another frog and you have this boiling pot of water on your stove and you toss the frog in there, chances are the frog is immediately going to try to jump out of that pot of water. Use that analogy in terms of relationships. When people wonder why people stay in unhealthy relationships. And again, I want you to also take your mind out of intimate relationships, because parental relationships can also be very toxic. You know, siblings, cousins, friends, all these things. So just think relationships in general. But if you're in a relationship and this person is doing all of these minor things. They may be against your boundaries, or they may be, out of your comfort zone, but you don't say anything because they're small and you can put up with it, or you can change this person and they will grow and y'all be good and there'll be this perfect relationship that you have in your mind. And then it's going to get to the point where the behavior continues and there's no change, there's possibly no change, but then as you're going to be so connected to that person, it's going to be harder to let them go, or to whatever you feel is necessary for the next step in that relationship is going to be harder because you stayed so long and invested your energy and your time. That's why it's so important, I feel, that we should be talking about the red flags. We should be talking about know your boundaries, stick to your boundaries, and don't let anything waver your boundaries. And we should be talking about the possibility that these behaviors, these red flags, can start out very innocent in the beginning, and it can turn into anything. And I just feel like there's no reason why, when we literally can decide everything in our life, what happens in our life, who is in our life, I just feel like there's no reason to intentionally or knowingly invest in relationships that don't align with what you want out of people. And that is, again, any type of relationship across the board, whether you're having sex with them or not. It should just be certain standards and certain boundaries to have. And when people cross those lines, take the time to address the behavior, correct it, and let them know this is not okay. If you continue to do this shit, you out the dough, the motherfucking dough. I really just want to stress the early signs, the beginner signs of red flags, because we need to, for everything, our whole society is very reaction based. We're always on the defense. We wait until issues come up and then we talk about them. But I am a very proactive person. I believe that I'm an educator. So I believe that talking about it early, talking about it before it happens, and be proactive about your relationships, be proactive about your sexual health, your pleasure, your desire, your boundaries. Just be proactive instead of waiting for the crisis. And then you have to get in trauma mode, crisis mode, fight mode, all that stuff. Is to help somebody, give them just a little token of something to take on with the rest of your life. And every Wednesday, we right here on IG Live. IG Live. Every Wednesday, we right here talking about different topics, adult conversations that we all need, and just make every part of your life orgasmic. And sending peace and happy vibes your way.